Hello everyone and welcome back. If you haven't had a chance to tune into our previous lessons, I strongly suggest that you go back and do so. For those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, hi, my name is Lauren. I work for a group in Lancaster, Pennsylvania called Compass Mark. Since we're all stuck at home for the duration of the school year, we thought that we would bring our Leaders of Future Generations lessons to you at home. So in our previous lesson, we've been exploring conflict escalation, and conflict de-escalation. So what that means is we've been talking about what a conflict is, so how to define it, what we tend to do as people that make our conflicts get worse and escalate, and then how we can actually incorporate different techniques to start to de-escalate or bring that conflict back down. So today we're going to take all of these skills and put them into actually solving a conflict. Okay, but first, let's look at our quote today. This one's a long one. Our quote today comes from American philosopher and psychologist William James. And William says, "Whenever you're in a conflict with someone, there is one factor that can make the difference between damaging your relationship or deepening it. And that factor is attitude." Okay, we'll come back to that later. So we have already been learning the common mistakes that people make when we are in a conflict or a fight with someone. And to remind you, a conflict is a problem with at least two sides to it. And these common mistakes are blaming, exaggerating, threatening, name-calling, and refusing to listen. When we use these behaviors while conflicting with someone else, we escalate the conflict. And before we know it, something that started out really small could actually turn into something really big and out of control. Next, we explored ways to actually bring that conflict back down. So when it gets out of control, using techniques like using the other person's name to show respect and also demand respect for yourself, relaxing our bodies, keeping ourselves calm, calming our voices back down to normal so we don't find ourselves in like a screaming match with somebody else, identifying what the problem is but not blaming that other person. So just stating, this is what the issue is. It's not about me, it's not about you, this is what our problem is. And then using words like let's, we, our, and together. So using words that are plural, that remind the other person that this is between both of us. It's not just my fight and it's not just your fight. When we treat it like an I or a you situation, we start to look at the conflict like a fight or like a competition. Like we have to win in order to be satisfied with the end of this conflict. But that's actually not the way to look at it. When we compete, that means there's always going to be a winner and there's always going to be a loser. So there's a 50% chance that you're going to end up losing if you compete with someone, right? And even if you do win, did you really win? Because if you look at your relationship now, you might have actually broken it a little. Okay, back to what we were talking about. So once we're in a conflict, it can sometimes seem like there's no way out. Like, we're just really butting heads and we are not going to be able to break free of this conflict. Or we might find ourselves unsure of how to actually solve it or end it. Like, what now? What do we do now? How do we get out of where we are now? We're going to go through some strategies to help you actually solve your conflicts in a fair and peaceful way. So the first strategy or technique is called steer clear. You may remember this technique when we learned about peer pressure refusal strategies. We use steer clear when the situation is dangerous. So let's say you know that a conflict with someone could prove to be dangerous, violent, or is going to lead to trouble. Then maybe you're better off not engaging in that conflict at all. Or perhaps there's someone in your class or in your environment who you know that you always fight with. You can't be in the same room with this kind of person without it turning into an argument. Well, maybe the best way to deal with that conflict would be to not let it happen to begin with, right? To stay out of that person's way or to keep them out of your way or to not go to that place where you know that the conflicts might be dangerous or involve something that could be harmful to you. If there is someone you know that bullies you or always starts fights with you, then you may want to just steer clear of that person. Okay. The next technique is to don't sweat the small stuff. So sometimes our conflicts are over really tiny things. If we really think back on how they started, they are really small and they're no big deal. And if this is the case, sometimes it might be best for you to just not sweat it, right? Just brush it off, get over it. For example, someone cuts in front of you in the line to the water fountain, or someone accidentally knocks your book over onto the ground, or someone mispronounces your name, or something that is really small, and as long as they didn't do that on purpose, right? Like an accident, okay? So when these accidents happen, these situations don't need to be made worse by us starting a conflict with the person. Sometimes it might be better for us to just let it go, right? To just get over it. This is a great technique, unless the situation is a big deal. If the situation going on is something big, as in it's hurt your feelings, it hurts someone else's feelings, it's harming somebody, something bigger than just, your book falling on the ground, then this doesn't work. Okay, so for example, your friend started a rumor about you. If you just not sweat the small stuff and you just brush it off and act like it doesn't bother you, it's still bothering you, and you're actually just avoiding the conflict in that situation, and you're just burying it down deeper, which is going to lead to a lot of different and worse problems in the end. So that's not what I'm saying, right? We don't want to just avoid our conflicts. But when the situation is small and it's something that we could easily get over, then don't sweat the small stuff is a great technique. Okay, for bigger conflicts, there are 3 main ways that we can solve them. Okay, so we are not steering clear, so it's not dangerous. We know we are going to engage in this conflict, and it is a bigger deal than something that we could just brush off. So we're not sweating the small stuff. Now we're in the conflict. There's 3 things that we could do. The first one would be to agree to disagree. This strategy takes a lot of maturity and patience. We as humans love to compete. I mean, turn your TV on. It will not take very long for you to find some kind of competition, whether that be like a game show or a reality TV show, a cooking show, a sports game, anything like that. We love competition. Okay, we like to know who wins and who's the best and to rank ourselves. And that's fine and good when it comes to games and everything. But when it comes to interpersonal relationships with other people, competing is going to either have you win and you ruined your relationships, or have you lose and you ruined your relationships. Okay, so competing with someone is never going to be the right answer. So when we find ourselves in conflicts, when we feel like we have to win the argument, the truth is that winning doesn't get us anywhere, and it usually only makes the conflict worsen or could cause our friendships to be strained and sometimes even end. So instead of arguing with someone until you win, these situations could be solved by simply agreeing that you have different opinions and moving on, and knowing that that's okay. When we talked about respect and empathy and even friendships, we talked about how the people around us are all very different, and that's a great thing. The diversity that we have in our lives, it helps us learn more, it helps us grow, it helps us see things from other perspectives and open our minds, think outside the box. I could go on and on and on about all the positive aspects of having people around you who are very different. So why should we feel like we have to convince someone to feel the same way that we do about something? For example, maybe we like different NFL teams. Maybe I'm a big Eagles fan and you're a big Steelers fan. What would I really gain from trying to convince you that the Eagles are better than the Steelers? Nothing, right? I might feel a moment of I won the fight, woohoo. But really, I'm just trying to convince you that you're wrong and that I'm right. And by doing that, I'm going to look kind of bad, okay, and mean, and you're probably not going to feel very good about me anymore. And my life really wouldn't have changed at all by convincing you to like the Eagles over the Steelers. So instead, we simply respect the fact that I'm an Eagles fan, you're a Steelers fan. Great, let's move on. Okay, so we agree to disagree. Now, not everything is as simple as a sports team. Might be something bigger like a moral issue, or some places where people tend to get really divided, maybe with like religion or with politics, and that's okay too. Everything about you that made you who you are and the values that you have formed the opinions that you have on these topics. You're you, and you don't need to change that. So if you feel that way about you, why should you try to change the opinion of someone else, right? So sometimes it's just it's more peaceful, and it's a better way to solve it if you just agree to disagree. Our next healthy strategy is called a compromise. A compromise is when we give in a little bit of what we want to find a peaceful solution. So this technique requires some selflessness, as we understand that we are not going to get 100% of what we set out to get. but we will still leave feeling happy. For example, let's say you and I want to watch a movie tonight, and you want to watch a comedy, but I want to watch a scary movie. If we were to compromise, we both have to give in a little. So we're not going to get 100% of what we want. We're not going to watch a straight up scary movie, and we're not going to watch a straight up comedy unless we can find a more creative way to do that. So for example, we could take turns watching each one. Maybe tonight we watch a comedy, and then tomorrow or the next time we get together, we watch a scary movie. Or maybe we watch both and we stay up for, 5 hours and watch 2 full movies. That's great. Okay. Or maybe we watch some kind of scary comedy like Ghostbusters or a scary movie, something that we know is going to make us laugh, but might also have us on the edge of our seats. Okay. So we find a way to either combine our ideas together or take turns. Okay. So that it's even, but we both had to give up a little bit of what we wanted. Okay. So neither of us get 100% of what we want, but we're still happy. Here's another example. Let's say for dinner tonight, you want pizza and I want tacos. So we could have pizza tonight and we could have tacos tomorrow. We could go find a taco pizza because those exist. Or we could go somewhere like a food court or order food from a place that has both. Okay, so we can find a way to either both get what we want, or we can, by giving up a little of what we wanted, or we can combine our ideas, or we could take turns. So that would be a compromise, which is a great way to solve it. It's a great way to show that you respect the other person enough to give up some of what you wanted, and that you still respect yourself enough not to give in completely, that you still get a little bit of what you wanted, okay? The last technique is to peacefully solve a conflict is the best one, and this one is called a win-win. In a win-win, we work together to find a new solution that we both like. This is an important distinction. We will no longer be choosing either of our choices, okay? So we're not going to pick pizza, we're not going to pick tacos, but we're going to come up with a completely alternative idea. So something that both of us like that is neither of our choices, okay? So for example, for the movie example, scary versus comedy, instead we decide to watch a drama or an action movie. Something that we both like that isn't either of our first choices. For the food example, instead of pizza or tacos, maybe we go get cheesesteaks. Okay, so we choose another option. This ends up being the best way to solve the conflict because we both end up with a result that makes us 100% happy. No matter which of these strategies you choose to solve your conflict, you must incorporate your respect and communication skills. If you decide to compromise, but you do it with an attitude or with an aggressive tone of voice, it's not going to feel like a peaceful solution. It's going to feel like you're mad at them for making you give in, okay? Or like no matter what, you're still going to be unhappy and ungrateful. Being assertive and standing up for what you want is also very important in conflicts. If we just give in and we say, oh, we'll just watch some comedy, that's fine. That might seem fine, but you are giving in to something that you didn't want to do. So that's actually being passive, okay? That's being shy or fearful or nervous or avoiding the confrontation. So instead of avoiding it, feel free to stand up for what you want. Just do it in a respectful way. And understand that you might not get 100% of what you want. You might have to compromise and find a new way to look at it. And remember, being assertive means that you're confident, you stand up for yourself. It doesn't mean that you're being rude or bossing the other person around. But you also have to show respect and value for the other person and what they want to do as well. So let's think through some more challenging conflicts. Let's say you and a classmate both need the same book from the library for your book report. How could you solve this? Let's say that you decide that you'll get the book for 3 days and that they'll get the book for the next 3 days. Which strategy did you use? If you picked compromise, you would be right. So we compromised. We both wanted it for the full 6 days. Okay, we wanted it that whole time. But instead, I took it for the first 3, got my work done. You took it for the next 3, got your work done. Let's say you decide to forget about it and let them have the book. Which one did you use? Well, you used don't sweat the small stuff. Was that a good choice for the situation? No, okay? Because this is a big deal. So if you decide to let them have the book and you're like, oh, forget it, they got there first, they took the book, there's nothing I can do about it, then you don't do your assignment, who are you gonna blame that you didn't get your assignment done? You go to the teacher and you're like, well, I couldn't because Jenny took my book. Well, guess what? Is it really Jenny's fault that she got the book instead of you? No, okay, because you didn't try to solve that conflict. So instead you avoided it. It was actually your fault that you didn't get that book. So avoiding it in this kind of situation is not going to be healthy because this is a big deal. It's a project you have to do. It's a grade that you're depending on. Let's say that you ask the librarian if there is an online version or if she could help you find a second copy. What technique did you use there? If you said win-win, good job. You try to think outside of the realm of possibilities here, think beyond it, and come up with an alternative solution. Okay, how about this situation? You and your friend are trying to decide what to do on a Friday night. They want to go to the school's football game, but you want to go to a party. How could we solve this? Okay, so you both want to do different activities. You can't be in two places at once, so how do we solve this? Let's say you decide to go to the first half of the game and then leave at halftime and go to the party. Which one did you decide? If you said compromise, you got it right. That would be a compromise. We're cutting our time in half. If you decide to go bowling together instead of going to either of these options, which one did you decide? That will be a win-win. Good job, because you came up with a completely new idea. As a leader, it's important for you to understand how to handle conflicts. As the leader of the group, there may be times that your group members are conflicting with each other, and you will have to step in and mediate the situation by offering up one of these solutions. Or you yourself could find yourself in a conflict with a group member. As the leader, you have to remember that you are a role model, and the way that you handle conflict will be noticed by those around you. So to remain respectful of others and respectful of yourself, it's important to learn how to solve conflicts peacefully. Being able to offer up these solutions, like how could we compromise on what we're talking about? Should we just agree to disagree and move on? Or can we find a win-win solution? Let's take a look back at our quote today. As a reminder, our quote is from William James, American philosopher and psychologist. And William said, "Whenever you're in a conflict with someone, there is one factor that can make the difference between damaging your relationship or deepening it. That factor is attitude." So I think what William is trying to tell us here is that conflicts happen, as we know, but there is one thing that could change everything between either breaking your relationship and causing a tiff between you guys or causing this fight to get worse, or actually deepening it, and that is attitude. If you bring a respectful attitude to this conflict and a collaborative attitude, meaning you want to work together to solve this. Again, this is not just about me, and it's not just about you, but it's about both of us. If we can bring that kind of attitude to it, then we're much more likely to solve it and actually deepen our relationship. Because I'm going to learn what you liked more, and you're going to learn what I liked more, and we're going to be able to strengthen our relationship together. So it's not a matter of thinking that conflicts are bad and we have to avoid them at all costs. It's actually a matter of we can bring a good attitude to this conflict and we could solve it together in a peaceful way. Okay, here are some discussion questions for you to discuss at home with those around you or with your friends or even with me online if you'd like. Number 1, describe a time when you used one of these strategies. So again, I know that you just learned them, but thinking back on them, thinking back on a conflict that you may have had, when have you ever solved a conflict using a compromise or a win-win or decided to agree to disagree or not sweat the small stuff? Okay, number 2, what qualities do you need to solve conflicts with others? And number 3, how does solving conflicts peacefully make you a better leader? Okay, for your at-home activity, I would like you to write a comic strip, a story, or a role play. So whichever of those that you like, comic strip, straight up story, or a role play with dialogue about 2 characters who are in a conflict and how they come to solve it by using one of these strategies. So either not sweating the small stuff, agreeing to disagree, compromising, or finding a win-win. Share it with your family, your friends, or share it with me. I would love to read it. Well, thank you so much for joining us for today's lesson on solving conflict. I hope that you had already watched the other ones so you could come with us on this conflict journey. Next time, we will be taking conflict a step deeper by recognizing what a bullying situation is and how that can differ from conflict. Well, I hope you all are safe, well, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.